All right, hello everyone. With all the talk about the upcoming changes to the notebook app, as well as other apps that involve overlay and the Playdemic, with them taking a stance on not allowing this to become in-game, I just wanted to go ahead and reach out to you guys and kind of expand on this a little bit. I feel kind of obligated to at least kind of mention this as something that you guys should be aware of, because if I already know that there's a large group of people that already know about this feature. So what I don't want to do is basically make it to where only these select few individuals know about this feature and have everybody else in the dark, because to me, that's my definition of creating an unfair advantage. You're giving certain guys who understand how to do something an advantage that other guys just aren't aware of. So with that being said, I try to play and I try to make sure that there's an equal playing field for everybody. That's why I'm always trying to, find better ways for them to come up with the tournament solutions, for example, to make things so the little guys also are kind of taken care of, and it's not just, these guys in well-groomed clans, for example. It shouldn't be a competition of who has the best clan chats. For instance, everybody should be given the same opportunities. And with that being said, I want to make sure that everybody is kind of aware of the same things. And what it particularly involves is essentially workarounds for, you guys know this is going to be taken out of Notebook. It's going to be taken out of all the other apps because they're just simply not going to be allowed to do it anymore. However, there's still things you can do with both iOS or with both operating systems. There still is workarounds. And, several people already know about this. I'm positive. I've already seen, the community support and, discussions on it in several places so far. So, for instance, if I was to go on the Android here, pull up this bottom taskbar, and I was to go and pull up all my open active apps right now. So here you can see them. You'll see a variety of options at the top. There's one that kind of looks like two. Well, what is that? That's a split screen. If I was to pull that open, I can go ahead and run apps in split screen mode. If I wanted to make the notebook big and do ring adjustments, for instance, you can see that I can have Golf Clash still open up here on the top, kind of small. And then I could kind of collapse it down a little bit if I wanted to make Golf Clash a little bit larger. Keep in mind, it does kind of change the way that I can to input things here. However, it's still a workaround to where you can still do adjustments, and it's available through the operating system on Android. So anything that's Android 7 or later should have this piece for you to be able to do. I can do it on my tablets. I can do it. Now, the only thing is I don't really do it often because up to this point, there hasn't been much use for it, because if I can just overlay on the screen, it makes my life a lot easier, because what this is going to do is it's going to cause temporary disconnects. So what you're going to see happening is there's going to be far more disconnects happening in between your games. It's going to make the connection issue kind of uncontrollably. It's going to make the game a lot less fun to play. A better solution for, Playdemic at this point would be able to find a way to get some of this integrated into the app. And they haven't even, started the discussion with us involving, taking pieces of the app. We'd probably be more than open to start the discussion to, if they were interested in learning more about it, but they've never shown any interest to learn about rings whatsoever. When I did the elevation video for them, for instance, for their channel, they didn't view rings as a standard unit of measure for Golf Clash. It's like a fan-based, basically created way of aiming. However, there's a lot of structure to the actual way that it works. It's capable of being taught. I've based my entire channel based on teaching the ring method. So, it is something that is possible to have happen. And what that would do is, that would create the best, like if you wanted to use ring calculations inside the app, you'd be able to do it. If you wanted to disable it, you could disable it. You could just toggle it off. If you don't want to use it, that's your call. But what that would do is it would take away the disconnects altogether if they were to do something like that. So let's just say, I wanted to get rid of this and just kind of close this down, put it back into single mode. There's yet again, another option that I can use. I can actually drag something from my sidebar, and I can put it into the app, and I can expand it to as large as I want. So here you can see that I'm just kind of pulling it down. I can make it wide. I can make it as big as I want. And, it's just kind of overlapping Golf Clash. And I can still input these ring adjustments, as you can see. I can still play with everything here. Everything still works. If I need to collapse it, here you can see is the collapsed version. It's just kind of displaying on. And there's nothing that can be done about this. This is on the operating system. This has nothing to do with our app. So everybody running Android 7 or later can do this. So it just kind of shows, as technology increases and becomes more readily available, there's going to be better ways to do stuff. So trying to take away this overlay is really kind of counterproductive. It seems better, in my opinion, to embrace it and just make it so everyone can use it or not use it on their own discretion. It'll be entirely, if you don't want to believe in the ring system, that's fine. You don't have to use it. You don't have to come to my channel. You don't have to, you don't even have to deal with it whatsoever. But, some guys, they rely on it because it's something that can be figured out. And if, seeing tournament performance kind of go skyrocket, that kind of dictates how useful it actually is, because almost every single top player in the entire game uses some version or variation of the ring method, to where they are counting, whether they're counting 1, 2, 3, 4 numeric, or whether they're using the rings as reference, it's still one and the same. Even if you don't use it and say, I don't need to count, that's fine. If you use the markers, if you use the rings as markers, and say, I'm just going to pull it into this spot because, I can see how many rings that is, for instance, and it's about where I want to pull to, that's still some variation of the ring method. And you can see, the Android version creates ways for you to still play Golf Clash and, run multitasking apps. And as technology improves and we get to, S10s, S11s, S12s, I think it's only going to get even better. The stuff that you're going to be able to do is going to be even far more sophisticated than it is today. For the iOS, if you guys haven't seen on my channel, but there's something very similar. You can basically swipe in between apps. If you guys are on iOS, you can go to my iOS playlist on my channel. So for instance, if I was to, just go to my channel here, and I was to go to iOS playlists for iOS help, you'll see, there's a widget. It's not widget based, but it's a demo here for iOS. This is actually showing, guys how to basically just close down apps and go in between. Again, another disconnect method to where you'll have to actually, to basically, just, what it's basically derived from is you'll have to just kind of close the game down, go in, and be able to, launch. And then once you have your ring adjustment, you can just kind of close it down temporarily. And, all it's going to do is kind of create more disconnection issues. And one of the best things about the way that it used to be, with the way that the game was ran, is these guys had Apple iPad slide over feature, which didn't disconnect from the game, and Android had another version which didn't disconnect from the game. You could always use the overlay without disconnecting. So what you guys have in store for you, unless some changes are made, is far more disconnecting happening. And for me, that's going to make the game far worse. I've always viewed the app as a better level playing field. If you choose to not use it, well, that's on you. If you don't want to learn it, that's fine. But what you're doing is you're kind of single-handedly yourself creating kind of a gap that wouldn't exist. And what this is going to do is it's going to create more of that gap again, because the best players in the world who don't need to use the ring tools, I don't need to use this tool. I like to use it because it makes my life easier. I don't have to think as much, but I don't need to use this. I can still win. So, what it does is creates a way for the average players or even below average players who can't do these ring calculations in their head. It basically lets them input a wind and come up with a number that is a good approximation that they should be going for their adjustments. And, based on whatever the wind direction is with the new wind directional tool, it helps get it even that much closer to the true value of what you should be adjusting. And again, a lot of the top players in the world, they don't need to use it. It's optional to them. So what the ring tool does is it makes those guys that are more towards the mean, or, one standard deviation away from the mean, for example. So if we're looking at, basically between the 25th and 75 percentile of players, if you were to visualize everybody in the game, under a bell curve, for example. If you were to look at, everybody within one standard deviation from the mean, on the plus or minus side, you would be looking at, the bulk of the players. Probably more than 50% of the players are going to fall in this category. And if they're not strong with doing ring calculations in their head in a 45-second time setting, well, they're at a severe disadvantage when they come up against me, because I can do it in the blink of an eye. It takes me about 3-4 seconds to come up with a ring adjustment. No calculator, all in my head, no sheets, nothing. So what the notebook tool does is it actually makes players that can't do that have a chance, to where they can basically say, okay, well, now I can compute this as fast as Zach can, for example. And it's not just me. There's other players that are equally as good as this. When you look at the top guys in the world, they don't need to use anything like this to win. They can beat you without using these tools. All it does is just create a more faster way and a more organized way for them to shot execute. So with that in mind, taking away these pieces, which, technically they're not doing, because, they fully support the use of using it. They just don't want it on the screen. However, as you can see, there's nothing that they're ever going to be able to do that, disallows the OS from being able to run split screen like this. And, if if they ever try to, try to tackle this as well, if they ever want to loosen up their security a bit to do this in the future, they're going to have their own version of this to where you can do this. But for the meanwhile, especially guys that have one device, they're going to be using methods like this to still do this. And if they want to draw on their screen protectors, grids, they can draw the grid. They can draw the grids, for instance. So, all this is kind of doing is just really dividing things just a little bit more. So, I hope in the future, things do go in the right direction. If you guys have more concerns, I recommend, instead of taking it to the Facebook communities, your best bet is to just, positive or negative, take it straight to Playdemic. There's no point of venting about things elsewhere. It's not going to solve anything. So that's what I recommend. And good luck out there, guys.